Hello, I am Bert Janssen. Welcome back to the series of short videos in which I explain the book, The Organizing Principle, There Are No Coincidences. In the previous video, we saw how the transcendence of pi alludes to a greater reality. In this video, I will revisit Carl Gustav Jung and especially his work on synchronicities, which leads to the same conclusion. The picture we have of our reality is not complete enough to explain all that's going on. Carl Gustav Jung studied psychiatry, but he became really famous as a psychologist. Already during his young years, Jung had numerous very strange otherworldly experiences, which he describes in the book Memories, Dreams, Reflections, which I can highly recommend you read. In his own life and during his work as psychologist, Jung came many times across so-called curious coincidences. Some of them could not be coincidences at all, according to Jung. Those events were meaningful connected, but they had no causal connection. Meaning, you cannot say one event caused the other event. You cannot say this happened because of that. We all have come across these so-called curious coincidences. For instance, you think of a friend you have not seen or heard of for a long time. You have not even thought of this friend for many years, and now this friend is in your head. Minutes later, the phone rings and it is your friend. For Jung, these could not just be coincidences. These events could not just be chance-driven events. There had to be more to it, at least to some of them. When, for instance, Swedenborg had a vision of a huge fire in the city of Stockholm, a real fire was raging in that city. Emanuel Swedenborg was a Swedish scientist and philosopher. In July 1759, Swedenborg has dinner with a few friends in Göteborg, hundreds of kilometers away from Stockholm. After dinner, Swedenborg goes outside to get some fresh air. When he returns, he looks pale and is agitated. He tells his friends that he had a vision about a huge fire raging in Stockholm. The vision returns a few times, giving more and more details about the fire. And Swedenborg tells his friends that the fire is now approaching his own house. Then the final vision tells Swedenborg that the fire has been stopped, only 3 doors away from his own house. 2 days later, a messenger arrives in Göteborg from Stockholm, confirming the huge fire that had raged in Stockholm and confirming all the details Swedenborg had shared with his friends. It's cases like these, and you thinking of a friend that made Jung decide that these could not just be curious coincidences. These events were meaningful, connected, but at the same time there was no causal connection. Jung writes, "What I found were coincidences which were connected so meaningfully that their chance occurrence would represent a degree of improbability that would have to be expressed by an astronomical figure." Let's for a moment go back to Joseph Banks Rhine and his Zener card experiments, which I talked about in the second video. There is no difference between these card experiments and the friend calling. The subject thinks of a card, and moments later the card is drawn. You think of a friend, and moments later the friend calls. There is absolutely no difference. But there is nothing in physics, or in biology, or in any other branch of science that can explain this. The events are meaningful, connected, but there's no causal connection. There is no traditional cause and effect involved. Jung introduces the idea of synchronicity. For years, Jung works on the definition of synchronicity, and in the end he settles for synchronicity is an acausal connecting principle. Since we are talking about an acausal connecting principle, synchronistic events happen, per definition, outside the realm of causality, outside the realm of space and time. The same was found during the Zener cards experiments done by Rhine. Space and time were not relevant factors. Important is to note that synchronistic events do not have to happen at the same time, or near same time, or at the same place. The experiments Rhine did with his Zener cards, which were actually cases of premonition, precognition and remote viewing, demonstrate this perfectly. The order of the casting of the cards and the drawing of the cards, or the distance between the drawing of the cards and the casting of the cards, did not play any role. They did not impact the results. Space and time were not relevant factors. Premonition, precognition, remote viewing are all different expressions of synchronicity. Causality does not play a role. Space and time are not relevant factors. Jung points out that synchronicity is not a philosophical idea, but an empirical concept, and that a complete picture of the world requires, besides the classical triad of physics, space, time and causality, the addition of a fourth factor, which Jung called synchronicity. Space, time and causality form one group, one family, while synchronicity is a group or family by itself. A better diagram would be the following. I realize that this diagram is a little confusing, and I suggest to replace the word synchronicity with greater reality. It is in this greater reality that synchronicities happen. Jung writes about this greater reality. Knowledge finds itself in a continuum where space is no longer space and time is no longer time. In other words, knowledge, absolute knowledge, resides in the realm where synchronicity lives and where causality is banned. It is the exact same realm where pi lives and where you can find perfect squaring the circle. In the following videos, I will elaborate on the question how we can access that realm, and with that, access absolute knowledge. I will talk about the role our state of mind plays in this, and how our state of mind is impacted by geometries, and especially squaring the circle. I see you there.